Welcome to the Panza Panza Forum. In the Yoruba language, the word panza is usually injected into poetry to express an uncomfortable, uncensored, and inconvenient truth. The Panza Panza Forum is candid conversations about the life of African immigrants in America as it relates to their adaptation to their new home. While some may find it easy to integrate and can balance between retaining the original African culture while accepting the culture of their new home, many continue to struggle to find a balance between both worlds.
Hello and welcome to Panza Panza Live. This is a podcast where we discuss the lives of African immigrants and their assimilation into Western society as they raise younger generations in a country that is quite different from their own. We also explore the experiences of children of immigrants as they balance the African and Western cultures. We present to you this informative, interesting, and expansive dialogue about the intricate experiences of African immigrants in America.
Okay, welcome to Panza Panza. I'm your host, Kemi Serikwi, and today I'm having a conversation with Adwoa Lee, a Ghanaian first generation living in Italy, on a relationship between African immigrant parents and their children. I came across Adwoa on YouTube posts on African parents, where she was addressing African parents and their relationship and the childhood trauma within African immigrant family. I would like to thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I really appreciate your effort in focusing on generational trauma and cultural conflict, as many African immigrants' parents are struggling in relating to their children emotionally and raising them in the diaspora, because it's very challenging. So welcome to Panza Panza, Adwoa. I'm so delighted to have this conversation with you on this platform to share your experience about being an immigrant teenager. You know, when you came to Italy, you were a teenager living in Italy, and your experience may be or maybe not similar to other African immigrant community in the diaspora. So as I always ask my guests, can you fully introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about your background as to where you were born, where you spent most of your childhood and adult life.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank you for having me. And yeah, it's really, for me, it's already a nice opportunity for me to also share my passion, basically. I am Adwoa Lee, so basically my Adwoa is my Ghanaian name, which if you're Ghanaian, Adwoa means I was born on Monday. And then I have my Lina, which is kind of like the English name. I was born in Ghana. So I was born in Ghana, grew up in Ghana, and moved to Italy when I was 17. And I've been living in Italy ever since then. So all my uni education, I basically did a little bit of high school education here as well. Even though I had finished high school in Ghana, I still had to, go through high school here as well, because back then I didn't know my certificate or my high school certificate could have allowed me to enter straight into the university in Italy. So there wasn't a lot of information out there where, somebody could tell me, hey, you could still go to uni even with your Ghanaian certificate, secondary school certificate. So I ended up having to go back to high school again. And yeah, it was quite intense because in Italy, high school is basically 5 years. And I had to actually have to go through that. Lucky for me, I didn't do all of the 5 years. Also because I was a little bit older. So I was already 17. And so I couldn't have started from the first year through to the 5th year. So I had to kind of come in between from the 3rd year, basically. I did a couple of years and then I realized, I think I got the information, or I did my own research, and I realized that I could actually go to uni by myself without having to complete Italian high school. So I just dropped everything and just went off to uni, and I did economics. So I studied economics and business management, and that is actually in the field in which I'm working currently. And I have done a little bit of teaching here and there. And now I do YouTube as well on the side. And I think one of the things that growing up has actually, or I have been teaching myself, is about my culture. Because I think most of the time when you grow up in two different environments, you kind of lose your identity and you kind of take certain things for granted as well. Because you grow up in one place and it's like, oh, I know this. But in reality, you don't really know a lot about your culture. It's when you move that you're able to kind of go back onto things and kind of see things from a different light. And I think this has been part of my growth. The fact that I'm growing and I'm actually appreciating the things that I thought I knew and learning them even more, because now it gives you more insight, also because you're older. So I'm just on this journey where I'm just really into who I am and focusing my energy on really understanding myself, understanding my background, my culture, and trying to appreciate it more rather than look down on it. Because if you think about it, there's good and bad in everything. So you can't just say, hey, I don't want to be Ghanaian, or there's just this part of my culture which is not good. It's just, you take the good, you take the and you just let go of the bad, or try to understand why it is you think it is bad, basically. So that is actually what I'm doing right now in terms of understanding my culture, understanding my place and where I fit in society, basically.
And I really appreciate that you're able to balance between two worlds, because we have many of our children who were born here or brought here at a very young age, and they tend to lose everything. They don't even want to connect. They don't want to relate. It's something that they feel ashamed of because of the European influence on African educational system and how powerful it is. And I'll give it to you. I believe they were teaching in Italian language when you go to Italy. So you have to learn the language.
I had to learn the language, and it wasn't easy because I didn't know nothing. I didn't know how to say even hello in Italian. So it was really, really tough. But then I think when you grow up in an African home as well, you're not really given the chance to fail. It's like you have to be able to do this because other people are learning. So why can't you learn? And I think we as Africans, or I would probably just speak for myself, we don't really think about it, but we grow up already knowing how to speak a lot of different languages. So it's like we're already inclined to learn a new language. It's just that sometimes we just put this blockage on ourselves and say, oh, this is just too foreign, and so it's just too difficult for me. But if you think about it, you've learned so many other different ethnic languages, and it's basically the same thing. So I was fortunate enough to have learned French when I was in Ghana. So being that I knew a little bit of French, and being that Italian is also part of this Latin language, it gave me a little bit of an edge to be able to learn Italian.
That's very impressive. That's very impressive, that you're able to do that, because it's not something easy coming from English-speaking country, even though, like you said, diversified language, even in Ghana. Maybe somebody, I don't know whether you speak Twi, maybe another person speaking another language, you're able to pick certain words. And that's very impressive. I really appreciate, what you're telling me now, that everything is possible. Because in America here, we also have people, apart from speaking English, you have Latin, the Latin Americans, South Americans who speak Spanish, so you tend to pick from some words here and there. And that's very impressive. I'm really glad to hear that. So for our audience who may not want to know, can you talk a little bit about your childhood growing up in Ghana? Growing up in Ghana, what would you say are some of the challenges or struggle of being the first generation African immigrant teenager living in Italy, from Ghana and then going to Italy?
Well, I think my childhood was, how would I describe it? Now that I'm looking at it from an adult perspective, I'm like, okay, there are just certain things that could have been a little bit better. So I grew up, my dad was already in Italy. So when I was born, my dad moved to Italy when I was very young. So I think I was probably around 6 or so when my dad moved to Italy. And so I wasn't able to live with my dad throughout my childhood years. My mom was basically my dad and my mom. And so it's when you have a mother who's playing the role of both sides, it can be very, very difficult, because then you have to understand that she is just one person trying to, not really take control, but make sure that her child or her children follow a certain path that she believes is the right path. Okay. So now I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, I understand why you did certain things that you did, but then it wasn't really easy at all. So I grew up in a very wonderful community. We all played together. We all, it was more of, how the African community is a collective. So everybody's just with everybody. You wake up in the morning, you see your neighbor, you greet your neighbor, you go to school together, you come back, you play together, and you watch TV in your other friend's house. Like, it's just a whole collective environment. And I think that was one thing I struggled with when I moved to Italy, because of the individualism that is in Italy. It's like you're so used to being amongst people, and then all of a sudden you're now forced to be by yourself and think just for yourself. And it can be a very difficult passage or difficult transition, which of course you learn to adjust. That is one advantage. It's a disadvantage, but at the end of the day, you also learn to be by yourself and learn to really understand yourself, rather than just having everybody in your space, So it wasn't a bad childhood, I wouldn't say, but I would say that there were a lot of things that we probably thought was right. Like parents just maybe talking down on you, or just shouting at you and just forcing you to do certain things you don't want to do, especially academically. Because I understand that for our parents, being successful is, not just you as a child being successful, but your success also translates into their success as well. And so they try to push you however, they can, just to make sure that you don't follow necessarily their path, but then you also make a name for yourself as well. So it's kind of like a military style: go to school, place first, do this, become a lawyer, become a doctor, and they don't really think about yourself, what you want to do. So that was really a very difficult phase, basically, where you have the pressure to really, really produce good grades and to do really well. But then deep down in yourself, this is really not a path I want to follow. So it has really been, I would say, a mixture. Yeah, it's really been a mixture of the two things.
And you are not the only one regarding parents always pushing their children. They want you to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, because that's what they know.
Yes.
Successful. That's right. What they think, that you're going to make name for yourself. And it makes them proud that they become successful themselves, like you said. And it's something, is part of the conversation I also want to have in the community, that not every child will actually go to college. No. Some children may end up learning trade. Some children, success does not define, what you do in life, or the brand name of scientist, or all these other name brand profession, because not everybody will be in that profession. It does not mean somebody who went to learn trade is not as smart or less intelligent than the person who became a doctor. You want to be able to produce a well-rounded human being that will be able to function emotionally, intellectually, and connect with every aspect of what it is to be an adult and human being. And I am glad that you brought that up, It's one of the conversations that I want to have. Maybe in the future, when I'm having that conversation, I'll tap into you to be part of the panelists that we discuss that. And parents may be part of it, that will actually have to listen to that as well.
Right.
So is it, you know, what you experience, how is it for African immigrant children who come from other parts of Africa, apart from those who come from Ghana in Italy? How is it, do you come across many of them in terms of their unique experience?
I do come across a lot of them, and I think it's more or less the same. I don't know, I think maybe Africans just have a way of parenting and have their own style, which is unique to just Africans. I mean, I'm just saying Africans because that is probably what I know. But I think if you also go to the Asian communities as well, it would probably be the same thing, because it's quite similar. The way they kind of, their culture is also almost the same thing. But I think for most people that I have come across, it has really been almost the same, except for those who were probably born in Italy and grew up in Italy. That there, the experience is kind of a little bit different, because there's like you haven't lived in your native country before, and you're trying to figure things out. You're kind of like in a home where your parents are Ghanaians or your parents are Senegalese and all of that, and they're trying to teach you their culture in Italy or in the diaspora. Whereas if you grow up in that country, you kind of already know like you already know some few things. So the experiences are kind of different in a way.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the Asian community as well, because I've heard many complaints from children from the Asian immigrant children who complain about their parents, even the Latinos, you know, that we have in America here, they complain about how, you know, their parents just, you know, input certain things on them that is not really generally common, you know, the native of the society where they live in. But then we don't even know how those other ones, the Native Americans or Italian, actually, you know, function in their home life as well. You know, so because everything tends to be segregated from one another, you know. So that's what it is. So can you share some of your experience or insight on how you dealt with being the first generation child as it relates to your identity, racism, and navigating through the diverse space in Italy?
I think it's been very interesting. Initially, you know, when you grow up in Africa, it's just you're amongst your same kind.
Yes.
Everybody looks like you. Even if you're from different ethnic groups, everybody's pretty much the same, and you don't really feel the difference. But moving to Italy, it was really, really difficult, also because I lived in a neighborhood where I was one of just 3 African families in that city. Not in, is this city? Would I call it a city? Kind of like the town. So it was just I was just one of 3 African families in there. And in my school, if I could count, I think it was myself, there was a Senegalese, and there was another Ghanaian in the entire school. So it was, you could feel the difference. Like you walk in the space and you can just tell that you're different from everybody else. And it wasn't easy fitting in, because also in my experience, I didn't start with them. I didn't start from the first year. So I came in when everybody had basically formed their own bonds and formed their own groups and cliques. And then I had to kind of, you know, try to fit in, which wasn't easy. But I think as in every space, when you go to a place where you have somebody who looks like you kind of draw towards that person more than you draw towards, you know, every other person. And so I think my first connections were with the Africans who were in the school. Because like it or leave it, they were also in a space where they're also segregated in a way. So it's like you form your group as well. You form your group with the people who look like you and who understand you better. It wasn't really, really easy, also because the fact that we're not a lot means that people are not really exposed to having Africans in the class or having Africans in their close proximity. Because, like, for a neighborhood to have just 3 African families, or for a school to just have a few, it means you haven't really interacted with Africans to really know how to also behave towards Africans, you know. And yeah, it wasn't pleasant, I would say. But I think some people were also quite open to trying to understand, to learning. And I think with those ones, of course, you kind of see the genuine interest to get to know you, rather than just the interest to just, you know, just say some stereotypical things. It was more, you just have to figure out. So I think that is also one advantage. You learn to figure out who you should relate to and who you cannot relate to. It's a whole adaptation skill, basically. You learn to adapt to your environment.
Can you just imagine that, you know, whereby, and even your parents themselves, they are trying to figure it out.
Right.
Because, you know, in terms of, you know, where they navigate, even at their job environment, or, you know, even if they have to come to the school, even advocating for you, they might not even think they have any opportunity or any gut feeling to come and advocate for you, but rather to tell you, just take it easy, just be patient, you know, be silent, you know, we are trying to make ends meet in this place, you know, so, and that actually will affect a child a lot.
It does affect, because you don't feel like you're being seen. Your voice is not really heard, and you don't also speak out, because it's like everybody's voice is louder than yours. And you don't also want to stand out more than you already stand out, because already your appearance stands out by itself. And so you don't want to also draw a lot of attention onto yourself. And so you learn to stay quiet, you learn to stay silent, and you learn to not speak out if you find that something is going wrong. You just kind of learn to bottle everything up. Also because you're trying to also form new relationships, you're trying to form new bonds. And so you learn to kind of sober everything down. Basically, you tend to not want to create any problems and try to let people come to you, because you're also seeking for that validation. You're seeking for that friendship. You're seeking for people to also come to you and be friends with you. So it's really difficult. I mean, I think in the US or in other countries where you have a lot of diversity, it's really easy to navigate. Also, I think it's quite easy to navigate your way around. But then when you are just the one person in an area or in a place where everybody else is different, it can be tough.
Yeah, it is. And I'll give you another perspective regarding that we are in America. Even though we have large number of different diversity also, African immigrants still face biases from other even people of color as well, because they don't really accept you. They also see you as others. So that is part of another issue that we're having problems with. Apart from you going through having to experience institutionalized racism, you also, you know, experience biases from people of the same color, just like you. So it's a lot of struggle.
That is also, just as you just spoke, it just drew my mind to, also in my class, I had another girl who was not African, but then she was from these Latin American countries. And just the fact that I was the darkest one now in the class meant that, you know, she felt a little bit above me. And so, like, I didn't understand, because to me, I was like, well, we are pretty much the same. But then to her, it was like, well, no, I'm a little bit lighter than you. So I just passed to, you know, be on the other side now. And so there you kind of really learn to see your difference. because whereas in Ghana, you think, well, everybody's the same. Here you learn to also see that there's some kind of hierarchy. Hierarchy, or I don't know if it's also colorism, whatever it is, but there is some levels to how a person is treated based on the skin color and how they're respected as well. And also based on your nationality. So even if you're Black and you are in Italy, if you're Black and you're from the States, you're treated better than if you're Black and you're from Africa. So it's like, when you go to a place and you just want to be treated better, it's like, okay, just say you're American, or just say you are from the UK. And that kind of raises, the respect up a notch. But then if you just, I'm African, I'm Ghanaian, it's like, not on the same.
Welcome. Yeah. That is so sad. That is so sad. And that creates so much from the power of whiteness.
Right.
The power of being white, being close to white. How much, that's so much influence on the global world.
Yes, it does. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that is why we have to find ourselves. Because I think when you have been taught so many different things, that becomes your reality. You have to unlearn so many things, and you have to be comfortable in yourself for you to kind of really say, hey, that is your opinion about me, but that is not who I am, So it takes a lot of courage. It's a learning. It's really never easy.
And I'm glad you're able to acknowledge that. And from what you're telling me, I could see that you already built yourself very strongly. To the extent. Your identity, is very powerful of how you see yourself, how you present yourself, and you're never going to deny your heritage. That is very powerful.
No, absolutely not. I think it just comes in phases. No, there's a phase where you're like, oh, I'm proud Ghanaian. This is me, and then you enter into a different space and you're trying to hide your identity to fit in. And then later on, you're like, I mean, who cares? Like, who really, really cares? This is who I am. So you have to embrace it. That is basically how you can be free.
That's
just by embracing who you
are. Apart from the, I know the children who grew up there, who were brought there at a young age, or they were born there, they might have some struggle with their identity. But do you sometimes, see some of the parents may also be struggling with belongings and, trying to navigate through the system, or, with the identity, even though an African person will say, I'm an African anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I think parents struggle as well. Because I think when you're even older, you struggle even more, because adapting becomes very difficult. Because you've already formed your identity. You've already basically formed your identity, you've formed your values, you've formed your ideas, and having to be in a different space and trying to adapt and adjust to that space can be really, really difficult. So you kind of see parents going to work, just having a few friends, conversation, and then just come back home. There's not really any form of network. There's no form of networking. There's no form of interacting, getting to know other people, because it's like, well, to what end? The main objective is have to do what I have to do, provide for my family. And I think that is also why we remain almost the same. Your idea does not change, because you've not also learned to see people and talk to people and understand people, people's perspective as well. So you're kind of really closed in your own bubble. So you basically leave your house, you're still in your own bubble, and you go to work, still stay in that bubble because you're not really open to anything. Come back as well, and you're still in there. So it's really, really difficult for, you know, to just open up or to kind of, I don't know how to explain it, to accept different
something
people
different
and
from what
different.
you know. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because one thing that I also see, imagine your parents, even though your father may have been living there longer, and he didn't have any child with him, so he might be able to navigate freely. But the moment many African immigrants, when they in a new place, is either they bring the children along, or immediately when they get there, within 1 or 2 years, they start having children. So it never really give them the opportunity to navigate through that society. And if you look at other community, they may not be from Africa. They may also be immigrants from other places. They might share something similar, as well, because it's like, you know, trying to make ends meet, navigate through things, and trying to, not also get into trouble, keep to yourself, because you already have certain projection, about the people that, this is how they reason. You don't want to rock the boat with anybody, just stay within your community. I remember reading the book of a young man, and he was talking about his father, that when he is at work, he kept to himself, he kept quiet. And when he comes home, it's all about doing everything that is necessary. But the moment the father gets to a Nigerian church, he becomes a child again, because he's in a comfortable environment of people who know him. He could feel himself, he could feel like, yes, this is a home. So I think a lot of immigrants do struggle with that.
Yeah, they do struggle.
Yeah. So knowing that African parents do not like to dive into uncomfortable conversation with their children, especially African immigrant parents, like I said, and you think back to your childhood, what conversation would you have preferred that your parents had with you growing up? Even though they may be vulnerable in that respect, if they actually have such conversation.
You mean what I would want them to
to talk to you? And if they do talk to you, they could show their vulnerability in discussing it, because there's certain things we don't want our children to know that is so obvious.
Yeah, I think there's struggles, maybe. I think there's struggles because I think parents try to put on this hero cape, they want to be the superheroes, and indeed they are. Like they can go through thick and thin for their children, which is really, really beautiful. But I think that you don't always have to put on that, strong persona, because as a person, you also have to be able to understand your feelings and your emotions as well. And when a parent, who I would say is kind of like the shepherd, who is also leading their child, doesn't share that kind of emotion, it makes it also very difficult for the children to be able to share emotions as well. So I think I would have really, really loved for my parents to be open with me when it comes to how they were feeling. If I did something that was wrong, and that made you feel a certain type of way, just tell me, hey, you did this and it made me feel this way, so I know this makes you feel this way. But I think in most situations, when a child does something, the parents gets angry and doesn't really explain to the child why they are angry. So I'm seeing your emotion, but I'm not understanding your emotion. And I think that is something that I would have wanted to have had those conversations, those very simple conversations. It might not even be simple, because it's not really, really easy to express how you're feeling. It's very difficult to express how you're feeling. But I think if you have that open space where you feel safe enough to be able to share your vulnerability, that, hey, listen, I'm struggling. So if I'm, I'm more touchy than before, it's because I'm struggling at this moment. And your child would understand that, hey, my mom is feeling this way because it's a very difficult, situation. It's a very difficult moment for her. You learn to understand. And I think it would have been vice versa if we could have just really expressed ourselves to one another. Hey, mom, I'm not feeling this way. You said this to me. And even though you might not have meant it this way, this is what I understood. I think it's all about communication, because sometimes we do certain things and we think our side is the right side, but then we don't look from the other perspective to see how that bounces off onto the other person. So I think, for me, I would have appreciated more of a dialogue, more of an open space where I could just, feel comfortable and feel free to just come to them and say, hey, today I'm going here, and this is what happened to me. This is what happened in school. This is what happened, here, and I'm feeling stressed out because I'm learning too much, or because this professor is just stressing me with homework and doing this. Because then it's like, okay, I can share with you. But then if it's all about, well, your professor is stressing you out, but you still have to make the, grade A. It's like, well, you're not really listening to me. There are good days, bad days. So in certain days, I might perform more than I might perform on other days. And it doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't make me less than. It's just like a wave, you just go up, you just go down, and, just have those conversations, basically. I think that would have been.
And you are so right what you said. And do you think also culture play a role in terms of emotional expression from the parents? Because when you come from a culture whereby fathers don't really express emotion, parents or even the mother may express emotion. I've spoken to many men, African men, where I've come across, and I asked them, when you were growing up, who would you rather talk to, your mom or your dad? And most of them said their mother.
Right.
Rather than talking to their dad, because their mother will listen more. So I think sometimes it's the culture that play a major role into.
Yeah, I think culture plays a role as well. Because I think in an African home, also in Asian, whatever it is, the man, socially, the man is supposed to be, the stronghold. He's supposed to be that fortress, that, that rock that you can lean on. So he can't really show you that he's crumbling, because then it's like, what are you going to think about him if the person who is holding you down is struggling and is crumbling? Then, it's like there's nothing to hold on to anymore. And I think, culture definitely plays a role where men don't cry. You have to be this, don't show emotions, don't over talk, don't, it's a whole lot of restrictions, but then it's also a burden, because it means that when they are going through certain things that they're going through, they can't also come out to speak.
Yes.
And that, I think, is really terrible, that he can kind of take everybody else's burden, but then can't offload his onto other people. That is already in itself not really good and not healthy for them as well. I think we have to be able to offload and unload. You can't just keep holding on, because then you just break. You just tear down.
And I think, and I think also where also another aspect of the culture comes in, because as an African, according to how many of us do, I don't want to generalize, you speak only to your age mates about your struggles.
Yeah.
Okay, you might look maybe with your dad or your mom, okay, only when they are talking to their siblings or they're talking to friends that they will actually express their emotional struggle, but not to a child, because they believe, like you just said, how can I offload to a child? What can a child teach me?
Yeah.
about what I'm going through, or can that child help me to figure things out? So, and we have to also, it's part of what we need to work on. And with you children who were brought here at a young age, or you grew up, or you were born here, is through your own effort actually to work with the parents and see how can we change things around? How can we educate many of our community in terms of emotional expression? I know we understand this is part of the culture, but we need to change the way we do things. And also, like we've been saying, the experience of an immigrant is also part of those stressors that comes into play.
Yes.
In every aspect of how African parents tend to parent their children.
Yeah, you have to have a strong arm, strong hands. Also, because I think most of African immigrants are also trying to hold on to the culture. And it's like, once you're here, you don't want your child to, to not know his culture. It's like you're trying to preserve something, which is also very difficult, because now it's like you're trying to also force that onto the child. Because when you excessively push things onto somebody, that causes the person to kind of go like, I don't want this. And I think that is something that probably most parents don't tend to see, that it's now like you're trying to force culture onto them. But when it's really like, hey, today, I don't know, probably, what can I use as an example of something that really happens in an African? Right now, I can't think of anything. But it's like we really force the culture onto the children. Whereas if I'm even just by eating jollof rice or by eating something, that is a form of culture, but not necessarily saying, hey, today somebody wants to eat a burger and you're like, hey, don't you know you're Ghanaian, or don't you know you're Nigerian? You're supposed to be eating this. And it's like, wait, when did that become, when did that become something negative? It's like I can still have my jollof rice, but if I also want to have, burger
or pizza,
it should still be okay, It should still be fine.
So it's a work in progress, it's something that we have to continue to do and to educate our community. And like I said, a lot of our youth are in different fields where they need to bring their expertise back to the community and then help out, the parents, because you are not just helping your own parents, you're also helping the younger generation that is growing up in that community to help them parent their children better, so we need that. So let's talk about your social and academic life in college. How was your college life during your academic career? Do you stay on campus or did you study from home? How did you navigate through social life in college? Did you also struggle fitting in it?
I would say I struggled more with guilt than anything else. I think when I was doing my undergrad, so I moved to Venice. My undergrad, I did it in Venice. And in Venice, I also had a few friends who were Ghanaians, right? And then there was also the Italians and everybody else. And I think for me, because when you're an immigrant, or when you see people who are like to you, you try to build that community. I felt more guilt to kind of leave that community to try to also network network between, other groups of people. Because I think it's very important that when you're in college, you try to network, because love it or you are forming your adult life and you need that network, and you need that different ideas, you need that different views when it comes to even doing just project works, or when it comes to just doing any academic works. You can't just stick to people who think just like you. You have to go outside and also have different, fresh minds, different ideas. And I think for me, I always felt that pressure to be with my African course mates, because I didn't want them to be left, behind. But then in the same way, I felt like, well, if I went there, I would not really fit in there as well. But that was just me, because I knew I could still fit in anywhere. And I think that is an advantage of being, being brought up anywhere, or being brought up in Italy or wherever it is. You learn to adapt, you learn to adjust to environments. And so I can basically fit into everywhere, but it's just the guilt of having, to leave my kind. And I mean, think, wait, what are they going to think about me? Are they going to think, hey, now she feels like she's Italian, so she just wants to mingle with the Italians? But I mean, that was not really the case. It was just about, broadening my scope, broadening my network. And yeah, but it wasn't, I think in my undergrad, I just stuck to my community people. I stuck to people who looked like me. And then I did my master's, and I was like, this is not happening again. I am not doing this again. So I think during my master's, I think that was where I was really like, hey, now you have to really, really, just broaden your scope.
Your circle. Yeah, because I always tell many of African immigrant college students or wherever they are, that you have to diversify your connection, your circle, because in the corporate world, you're not working only with the Africans. You're going to work with from different backgrounds. And through college is where you make those connections.
Exactly.
Different group of people. Yeah. Because after you graduate, whether we like it or not, when you know there's a job opening somewhere, it's through other people's connection that you'll find out that those jobs are actually open. And you're going to work with different people from different backgrounds. And you have to fit into the corporate environment.
Right.
Because here in America, we have a lot of discussion about race, all that issue going on, people of different gender and all those things like that. So, if you're thinking only blackness all the time.
Exactly, yeah.
When when you're looking for a job, you're not just going to look for a job where only Black people occupy. Even before you start, looking for a job, when you are in college, you're not just looking for historical Black colleges, because it's so limited number of historical Black colleges. You're going to, go to different colleges and talk to different people, learn from different backgrounds, which is very important. And I'm glad that you're able to navigate through that when you started during your master's program.
Absolutely. I was like, no, this is not happening again. Because I think then you really don't learn a lot. You don't learn a lot. You don't learn how to communicate more, because you're used to maybe one style of communication and one style of working. It's basically the same routine. So you have to switch it up, and it just also prepares you for what comes afterwards, because you're going to have different teams. Like you start working, people in the team would have different characters, and you have to learn how to, deal with those different elements and deal with those different characters. So for me now, I mean, I tell people, hey, you have to broaden your skill. You have to connect. You have to learn to not be in your comfort zone, because that is essentially being in your comfort zone. When you just want to be around your like people, that is just being in your comfort zone. You have to learn how to,
branch
out of that.
So does your African immigrant background influence how you interact with your professor when you were in college? In terms of, do you feel intimidated? Do you think you could debate with your professor and talk about your opinion? How you feel about it?
I actually didn't think I could debate with my professors. And I think that was probably also because of my background. Because, when you're African, or when you grow up in an African home, you're not really allowed to freely speak your mind. Because, and when you're also speaking to an elderly person, you have to know how to speak to an elderly person as well. So for me, I was always stuck to myself because I had not really developed that skill of communication, or of communicating to somebody who is of a higher stature than I was. I kind of really treated everything like, let's just leave it. Even if the professor just, marked me down, I'm like, it's fine, like, let it go. Whereas maybe in other my colleagues would just be like, no, this is not right. I am going to, speak to the professor. For me, I was like, I'll just let it slide, maybe work better on myself. And then, it was always like I was the problem. You learn to kind of see everything as you, because in your home, when everything happened, it was like, why did you do this? It's you did this. You could have done this better. You could have done this, way better. So you kind of learn to put everything on you. And for me, I think I really did not really stood up to my professors. I think it was basically because of how I grew up. I think it was just how I grew up. So I wasn't comfortable with, confrontation. I wasn't comfortable with speaking my mind because I feared what the other person would think of me. And also because I was of the minority. So it was like, just let it slide all the time. But,
and that is some of the impact of when you come from that kind of culture. Also, the Asian community also express the same thing, because they come from a home, the way they show, they express themselves in front of the elders is completely different.
Yes.
Then some in the general society, they might look at them as being docile, that, they cannot really speak up.
Right.
And so a lot of things like that actually affects a child in colleges, even in adult life, when you start working in a corporate world whereby you feel like you cannot, advocate for yourself, you can't speak up for yourself. So I'm glad we're talking about this, because it would be, something that many people could learn from. So now let's talk about your YouTube channel. What inspired you to start the YouTube channel? And what area of subjects you initially intend to cover? And how has your topic changed over time?
Oh my God, I'm still figuring it out. To be honest, I'm still figuring it out. I think when I started YouTube, I was still I was doing my master's program when I started. And initially I started doing natural hair, because I was on my own journey of, figuring out. I think it was just the era where everybody was just going natural, and I had cut my hair, and I remember the day I did, my dad was like, before cutting my hair, I told everybody, hey, I'm going to go natural. I'm cutting my hair. And my mom is a hairdresser, so my mom does hair, and my hair was pretty long. I've had pretty long hair my whole life, and having to cut my hair was drama. Like, it was drama in my home. And I remember my dad looking at me and saying, if over my dead body, will I allow you cut your hair? And then I was like, wait, but that is my hair though. That is my hair. So what are you talking about? And so I think the rebel just kind of, came out, and I'm like, well, just because you don't like it, I'm going to do it. And then I did. I cut my hair. And with, having to figure out my hair and all of this, I decided to have a YouTube channel where I could also share, my journey. And then I think it just changed somewhere along the line. I don't know when it changed, but then I started to cover a few things. It's been, my channel has gone through a lot, to be honest. And I think when I started to really identify who I was, or when I started to really learn about myself, I decided to also share that, to share the struggles, also about with being in Italy or being an immigrant in Italy and the things you have to learn. I think I was going through the route of teaching people in Italy how to, not necessarily how to live, but how to adjust, what to expect in Italy, how, you're going to be treated, and, my experiences. I think that was pretty much what I was going for. And I think that is the path I am still on now. I'm currently also teaching my language as well. So I'm teaching Tree on my channel.
I'm going to learn something.
I am teaching Tree as well on my channel because I feel like it's something that I can't let go of. I think growing up in Ghana, we had this perception that if you speak English, you are more educated. You are more intellectual, like you can fit anywhere. But I realized that that is not really true. Like I can still be intelligent and still speak my language because that is me. That is my culture. Like I can, it's just something else when you speak your own language. So even though I wasn't somebody who really spoke my language growing up as a child, I have learned it's way better. Like now I speak it. I speak it and I'm teaching it as well. And because I feel like there's also lack of, those languages. And I feel like it was really bad of me to know a lot of languages and not, teach my own. Because I speak English, I speak Italian, I speak French, I speak Portuguese. So why would I not want to speak my own language? It didn't make sense. So now I'm teaching it as well and using the same method that I used to learn all those other languages to teach Tree.
Wow, I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate it. I'm very impressed by that. And keep it up. Keep it up, keep it up, because it's so great to actually accept and, appreciate your language and let people know that it's a language that has to be taught. And people will also appreciate what you're doing as well, because many, like I said, many youth, when they come into many foreign countries, they tend to forget all these things and push it to the side. And they cannot continue to, to do that.
And people want to connect, and language is one of the ways in which you can connect to anybody. It just creates this, this opening for you. Like when somebody speaks your language, it's like, whoa, you know my language, and even though you probably don't know it, it opens a conversation up.
You feel connected.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all that, because I just appreciate everything you're doing. And I know many people who will follow you on your YouTube, they really appreciate it. So you had to recording on YouTube that actually attracted my attention. I don't know what I was looking for me to come across your channel. So one of the recording that you did on YouTube, one titled "Dear African Parents." This is why we don't talk to you. You are toxic and it's all messed up. So for our audience who may want to know, can you give a brief description of that video?
Okay. I think it's a video which talks about why African children are not able to have this relationship with their parents. I think there's dissociation. It's like when you're home, you're not really yourself. But when you go out, you're not also yourself when you're out there. So you don't really have a safe space. And I think in every human interaction, you want to connect. And I think most of the time parents are like, hey, you don't talk to me. And it's like, yeah, we would like to talk to you. But then it's like every time we try to do, it just goes through one ear and it comes out the next, and it kind of like, I don't know, they make us also feel guilty for what we say, or they make us feel like, hey, you don't even know what you're talking about. So when you have that kind of relationship, it's like, how do you expect us to talk to you? I honestly think some of the relationships that we have with our parents, or parents have with their children, is quite toxic. And that is basically what makes us not grow up to our full potential. Because I think when a child is growing up, you're supposed to love the child, care for the child, teach the child, you're not supposed to really put fear in the child, because then you're really not allowing the child to develop as he should develop. And I know parents do that because they care about their children. Of course, they don't want you to run into fire. But then I think when you also really hold your child by the hand and don't allow them to go through life and experience things for themselves, you're doing more harm than good. And I think in that video, I was just basically talking about my struggles. I think it was more of my struggles, what growing up in an African home did to me, or how it influenced me. Even though it wasn't a terrible home, and even though it wasn't bad, I know some have it worse than I did. But then I think even if it's a tiny little bit, it influences you in just diverse ways that you kind of you don't notice it in the beginning. You notice it afterwards that, hey, the way I'm behaving this way is because of, this and this and this. And you just have to go back on your childhood and try to understand where it is. So it creates more harm than good, I think. I was in the video, I was just basically talking about how we could have a healthy relationship, rather than this, I talk to you, don't talk back to me. Like, it's to me, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair, because you want your child to be able to socialize with you, but also have a healthy social relationship outside of the home. And I think we don't have that safe space. I think we don't have that safe space in our community, and we treat it as normal, where in fact it should not be normalized at all.
But I also, you are right. Yeah, for me also, it's something that I had to learn myself, And when I came to this country, I always say it on my podcast, I didn't have my children until maybe 12 years later. Then, allows me to navigate through and intermingle with people from different area, different group. So for many African immigrant parents, there's so much things that they're struggling with. And they could only teach what they know.
Right.
Even if you talk about American parents or white parents, if you look at those who are baby boomer, are different from this generation. And they look at this Gen Z, whatever they call them now, and say, where do you guys come from? What kind of behavior is this? We cannot even connect or relate to this.
No.
Then when you talk about parents who also deep into religion, there's certain things that they won't understand, because this is part of what the belief system is, even the culture. And then couple it with a society, a community that we come from, a society where we talked about before that you missed in Ghana.
Yeah.
The whole community that raised the children. So everybody have a lot of commonality together.
Right. Yeah.
And then you're connecting on that level. You have aunties and uncle. It may be back home, if you do something, they say, I'm going to talk to your auntie to talk to you. Or your uncle is going to talk to you. I don't even need to deal with you.
Yeah.
And then they will leave it to another family member to take care of. But now it's all on them, that they have to address all those things together. And they're coupled with other issues that they are going through as an immigrant.
Exactly. It's hard, I think, and that is why we have to have this. I think that is why we have to have this conversation. That is why we have to make it a safe space, both for the parents and for the children, because we are basically connected. Like, my success is yours, my health. If I'm feeling bad and terrible, you're also feeling bad and terrible. You feel it even more than I do because you're a parent, and so you feel it more.
Yeah.
And I think there's no point in, just shutting your child out, and there's no point in shutting your parents out. We have to really have the conversation of, what, we have to talk about things. We have to unlearn things, and we have to learn, things. Because I think you can't build on something that is broken. You have to really break it down and rebuild. And I think most of the time we don't want to, strip ourselves of all the other, everything that we've learned and what our grandmothers taught us, or what, the society taught us. But I think it's something we have to go through. Something we want to build a really, really good relationship with ourselves and with our children and with our parents. We have to be able to connect.
Yeah, and that's very important. And that's one thing parents need to also realize. And I appreciate what you just said, because it put my mind somewhere else. Many of us parents, we think, oh, we're going back home. I'm going to go back to Ghana. I'm going to go back to Nigeria and all that stuff. And then without realizing that, you know what, you are in a place where you are.
Yes.
And in a place where your children are. And as you get older, you want that relationship, close relationship with your children, whereby you could have a dialogue. Maybe you're going through health issue, you're going through so many things, because in a foreign countries, it could be very lonely, like we've been saying, and you want to be able to have your children close to you, so that that connection will continue, to build on, and have close relationship with your grandchildren as well. So, and it's through that, building, communication between both parties that will be able to establish that. So I'm very appreciative of what you just said, because this kind of dialogue is needed, is actually needed, So in another video that I saw, you you titled it, African parents need to apologize to their children.
Oh, yes.
Trauma.
I think I'm always
Can you further talk about that message of message you're trying to convey through that?
Yes, I think that was really a follow-up on the first video I made. And I think when I made that first video, there were just a lot of comments in there that I was blown away. Like, really, I was like, wait, are these like what people African children are really thinking about their parents? Because it really, really felt terrible. And I could read some of the comments and I would have chills. So the video was actually me just reading out some of these comments and trying to, break it down and comment on those comments as well. And yeah, it was pretty much a follow-up, and I kind of realized that my video was a place where people could kind of vent and people could also, share what they were going through. It made me feel really, really sad, because these were people who were saying, I would not want my children to be around my parents. And it's like, hey, I'm just waiting to finish my college education, and I'm gone, and I'm not coming back to, the home again. And for me, it was really sad, because it's like, you do all this effort. So as a parent, you do all of these things to make sure your child lives good, to make sure your child has a good life. And in the end, what you're really doing is pushing them away, because now they don't want to come back to you because of everything they've had to go through and deal with. So for me, it was me looking at these comments and seeing how people were thinking and how children were thinking, because it was premeditated. The fact that you're thinking, okay, let me just make this money and I'm gone and I'm not coming back. Let me just be 20 years and I'm not coming back to you again. It really made me sad.
And we don't want that. We don't want that as parents. No, I've never come across any parents who don't want to continue to connect with their children or their grandchildren. And that's why those things has to be. And you talk about trauma, which is a very important subject, because there's so many other parents who come in here that they too have trauma. Bringing up back home.
Absolutely.
And bringing it here. You know, trauma is intergenerational, that is passed down from one generation to the other. And if a parents didn't realize that what they experienced growing on was trauma, and that part of the trauma that they bring in and they raising their children with those traumatic experience that they went through, how is it affecting that relationship?
Absolutely.
Because if I think I have to be much more tough on my children on certain level, because, you know, that's how I was raised, that is what I learned, you know, I have no other choice except that. And you as a child, you have to follow through that. So if a parents did not realize that they experienced traumatic experience, they had a traumatic experience growing up, there's no way of them recognizing it, you know, when they are raising their children. I read a book called, I think I'm lying, but I'm telling the truth. Was written by a Nigerian, first generation who grew up in this country, brought from Nigeria. And she talked about mental health challenges.
Yeah.
The mother happens to be a nurse working in the hospital. This child, she talked about how she had to lie all the time to cover up as symptoms of her diagnosis of the mental health challenges that she was going through, because she has to present herself in front of the parents in a certain way. And the parents never acknowledge or even understand that she was what she was projecting, or, you know, how she's coming out is part of mental health symptoms that even the mom, who is a nurse, could have recognized, but she didn't recognize it because the mother too also have her own trauma.
Yeah,
going through depression, that she didn't realize that she also been depressed.
Yes. I think we have a different language for that. Whereas maybe here we kind of tend to, you know, acknowledge that, hey, somebody might be going through a mental breakdown or somebody might be, you know, suffering. I think back home, we try to treat it as alien. And we don't really want it to be part of us. Whereas, you know, everybody is bound to go through some level of mental breakdown. I mean, we are not robots, we're human beings, we experience emotions, and sometimes we can't handle those emotions. And sometimes they come out in different and diverse ways. And we need one another to be able to help us go through that. Now, when you come from a certain culture which doesn't allow you to talk about those, or which sees you as, hey, you're not serious. If you say, I'm not feeling good, or I don't know, something is wrong with me, it's like, you're not serious, you don't have anything on your mind, like your mind is not occupied, and that's why you're having all these, you know, emotions going through. It doesn't allow you to feel like you can talk to somebody, and it doesn't allow you to offload and to, you know, to have that dialogue with people about mental health. Because
yeah, and you know, in that video, I read some of the comments from the listener as well. You know, because when I watched your video, I was reading the comments, and there was somebody who make a comment that she was diagnosed with autism as an adult.
Yes.
You know, and she was highly functioning autistic individual, and I think the parents' behavior towards her came from the lack of awareness of their child diagnosis.
Right.
Because they didn't know that she, you know, this behavior, they consider it to be abnormal. You know, so they never really look at it as, oh, maybe something is wrong. Maybe we need to actually look into getting expertise to look at this child and see whether we could help her, you know, with whatever it is that she may be, you know, showing.
How she learns, how she does.
So, but to them, they consider, oh, something, you are not behaving yourself, so you're not dealing with this. So for me, we need more education on mental health, developmental disorders such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, learning disorder, intellectual disability, and many other of all these things that I think we need to bring that education to our community. And I believe we have so many of our African immigrant children who have expertise in these different fields. How can we motivate them to actually start looking into their community and bringing this expertise into educate the parents?
I think one of the things is what we're doing now, just putting it out there and just talking. I think once, there's a lot of people talking here and there, it can motivate somebody else to also come out and say, hey, this is what I have learned and this is what I can share. But when there's not a lot of information out there, it becomes very difficult for somebody to chime in their opinion. We can educate. I think we can educate, but for me, I think the education is more about the conversation. Every opportunity you have, where that situation pops up, you can just chime in your 2 cents, whatever it is. You can talk about it. Education, awareness, creating awareness, not necessarily making it look like everybody who goes to mental health is mad, or kind of like not also normalize it, but make it be human. I think make emotions be human. I think that is something we can definitely talk about. In fact, I don't know other ways, but I think communicate, just talking about it. I think talking about it is one way that we can educate people.
Because I keep referring back to the Asian community. One thing that I see about them, because especially in America here, you have different community.
Right.
As I said before, as an immigrant, as a Black person, as an African, my struggle is different from African American who are also Black, because they've been here for years and years. As an immigrant, I come from another background.
Yes.
So my struggle, not only focusing on race, is also focusing on some of the other issues many other immigrants actually go through. And if you look at in America here, we have the Latino community that also struggle through issue of race, identity, and many other things. And they do research in their community to bring out many issues that is going on, so they could get funding from the government to provide services that is unique to their community. And the same thing with the Asian community also. They understand, okay, they are minority in this country, they are person of color, no matter what, and they are struggling with so many other things. Their community is also struggling. How can they bring services that is unique to their community so that they could start building that differences that is going on between parents and children, and also parents understanding that you are in a different environment. How can we teach them to have a voice for themselves, to advocate for their children in school, to speak up for themselves, maybe through even advocating for them in healthcare setting. Back home, when a doctor says something, you think, it's a God that just spoke to you. You cannot have another opinion. You cannot challenge, not really challenge, but, ask for more explanation of what that doctor actually said.
Yeah, makes sense.
And speak up for yourself. So it's all these things gathered together that is needed, apart from the relationship between a child and a parent. So it's so diverse in so many areas. Because back home, when a doctor says something to someone, even some parents, some people don't even know the difference between It may be internist, or this one is a surgeon, whatever they say.
Everybody is a doctor.
Is a doctor. that, you know, whatever is a doctor that said that. But do not challenge the opinion that is being passed down to you. So a lot of things also, because of the cultural background many parents have, also do affect them as well.
That is true. I totally agree. I think it's like you said, it's not just the parent-child relationship. It's everything. It's everything around as well. And I think also having it still goes back to, you know, conversations, you know, because then you can also have this group, and where you can I don't know, you can just create some things in there where you can have parents or people in the community talk about mental health. You know, just having that conversation with people in that same community can help you see a lot of things that maybe you're not even seeing by yourself.
Yes. So as many, I'm wrapping up now, as you may have come across many children of immigrants who may be resentful towards their parents for not understanding them. Based on your own experience, what advice would you give to those immigrant children who may have some hard feelings towards their parents?
I would say they're still your parents. You know, they're still your parents, and you have to look at it as whatever, they have their own struggles as well. And I think that if you want people to understand you, you also have to understand others. And then if they don't understand you, or if you keep trying, then you can, you know, make your own boundaries. But I think some people just genuinely do not know that they're hurting their children. And some children genuinely do not know that they're hurting their parents as well. So I think it has to be something where, you know, you don't just cut off ties. I mean, even if that is the last resort, make sure that you've had that conversation with your parents, because then probably they're going to change. Probably nobody has really stood up to them and said, hey, you know, the way, like, nobody has really talked to them about these things, and nobody has really made them feel like, hey, what you did back then really, really hurts my feelings. Maybe you could have done this a little bit different. And I think for me, I see this because I had this conversation with my mom a while ago. I was like, hey, you know, when I was growing up, you did this and this and this, which really, really hurt my feelings. And it kind of changes everything, because then she's like, oh, I didn't know this was really, you know, this was really bad. I thought for my part, I was doing what I knew was right, because that was what I knew. And mind you, she also had her own struggles growing up. So the way she treated us was to make sure that we didn't end up like her. You understand? So you have to really be able to talk to your parents. And I think nobody wants their children to be far away from them. Nobody wants to not have a relationship with their children. And I think parents also have to kind of be understanding as well, and not think that they're just parents and they're high and almighty. I think when you do that, you don't allow for that conversation, because it's like, well, you think you're up there and the child is way below you, so she can't have that conversation with you. So I think it's a matter of parents, you know, coming down onto the child, to the child's level, and trying to really, really understand the child and explain to the child why this is happening. And yeah, I think there's no point in, I mean, you don't choose your family. you don't choose your family. You're born into the family. So you have to make it work. And if it's really, really bad and you feel like you've done everything and everything's not working, then you are free to kind of, like, you know, seek for your own peace and just, you know, let things go. Because also when you just keep holding on to people who don't understand you, it kind of pulls you away from what you're supposed to be. So I think the first thing was just to have that conversation with whoever it is that you think is hurting you, or, you know, just have that conversation. And when nothing changes at all, and you feel like you fought your own fight, you know, you can just be at peace with yourself. And I mean, in that way, you're also able to heal better, because at least you did your own part. Like, you tried to make things work. But then if from the other side, you're not receiving the same energy, then
you have to let go. And sometimes African parents, I would say, we tend to compare suffering. We look at our children and say, what do you think what do you think you're going through? Do you know what I'm going through? Do you know what I experienced growing up? And then if a child wants to have a conversation with you, it's for you to listen at that moment, not to have a judgment.
Right.
Because your suffering is different from their suffering.
Right.
And you cannot compare suffering, that what you suffer is much more important than their own experience. Everybody's experience is different. I remember talking to some of my members of our community that were talking about, American children, they tend to complain too much. All these American children who were born here or brought here at a very young age, that they're growing up in this country, they complain too much. And I had to tell this person that you cannot, compare that. What you went through back home is different from what the generation is different, the exposure is different, the life is different from the time when you were growing up. And I said, imagine if your own parents told you that you should keep quiet as well, that what you are experiencing when you were growing up is nothing to be addressed. I said, even though we may experience that growing up, we may be spoke to in that way growing up, we have to start reasoning on a different level.
Absolutely. I really, really like that, because I think just an example, yesterday I was just really, really stressed out. And I just sent a message to my friend, and I'm like, hey, I'm so stressed, I'm just tired. And it's like, well, it happens everywhere. And I'm like, wait, I didn't send you a message for you to tell me it happens everywhere. I know stress at work is everywhere, it's common. But in this situation or in this space, this is not what I need at this time. And I think that it also compares to probably the same thing. When you come to somebody with your problem or with what you're feeling, you expect for somebody to just be there and listen to you. You don't even have to say anything. Just listen to what I am saying, because sometimes that is my way of offloading. That is how I can just probably, vent out. But then when I say something and then you come at me with, hey, everybody experiences this, it's like you're not really listening to me, or you just probably don't want to listen to me. So I just kind of back up and, go elsewhere. So I think it's we have to have that sensitivity towards, listening and towards being there for somebody and creating that safe space where people can come out.
And would you also, I know it's not part of what your expertise in terms of talking about mental health within our community, and sometimes we might also need family therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Whereby, apart from if our children is showing some form of emotional issue, to seek help when it's necessary. And part of seeking help is to get that child therapy. And that child is not only the one in that therapy mood, or the one has to walk through things. As a parent too, who is living with that child, also have to be involved in understanding how can you help your child to progress emotionally. And I think all those things is also part of the dialogue and part of the conversation that has to take place.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because it's a collective. I mean, you can't have one branch just, doing one thing where the other party is doing something. It doesn't align. So I think if the whole family is going to grow and be a happy family and be a healthy family, every single unit in that family has to go through that journey as well. They have to go through that growth together. And that would make it way better than just one person and another person, just doing something else. I think it's for the better of the whole family. So therapy is good, and I don't know why we don't like therapy. I don't know why we just shy away from therapy. Maybe because we're not used to really talking about our problems. And when you have to do that with somebody you don't know, that is also scary at times. Because it's always like you have this relationship with people whom you know, and you think somebody might judge you, but in reality, it's even good because you're talking to somebody, a total stranger, about how you're feeling, and there's no judgment involved, and you can just be as vulnerable as you can. But yeah, I think it's something that the whole family should go through because we all need therapy. We all do. In one way or the other, somebody's therapy might not be with a therapist. It might just be, hey, just going out, just running, just doing things that, bring more life and energy to you. Another person's therapy might be totally different. So we don't necessarily have to go through the same therapy, but then we all have different ways of dealing with things.
Yeah. So would you finally say that you are at peace after the journey of exploring the past, as you can say, to move from sacrifice to relationship and to forgiveness?
I would say I am still on that journey. I think at peace, I would say I am way, way better than what I used to be before. So in some way, understanding who I am, trying to understand, my emotions, trying to understand my parents, trying to navigate through this world has given me some tools to be able to be at peace with myself. I think life is such a way that it's not monotonous. It's not like, hey, you've done this, so that is it. There's always more struggles, and then you realize, oh my God, this is something I now need to go back and find, what I can do to make this better. So it's like you're always learning to adjust to new things. And yeah, sometimes it can just throw you off because sometimes you don't expect certain things to come. But then I think the fact that you've built a foundation where it's a little bit stable and more solid, you're able to handle things a little bit better than how you would have done it if you had no clue of where you were, basically. So yeah, I think it's a continuous journey, continuous learning and teaching myself and understanding myself every single day. So yeah, it's going good. I would say it's really good.
So much, Adwoa. I really appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much. So how can our listener follow you on your social media or any other place, your YouTube channel, if you want to give it to the audience?
So I am on Instagram as Adwoa Lee. Yeah, I think it's ADWOA and Lee. So LEE. That is on my Instagram. And also on my YouTube, it's Adwoa Lee as well. So you can follow me on my YouTube as well. And if you want to learn tree, or if you want to, just just follow me through this journey of just, finding myself and appreciating our culture and, just really learning more about our African culture and appreciating it. You can follow me on Adwoa Lee.
Yes, thank you so much. So Pansa Pansa continue to normalize conversation about improving the relationship between African immigrant parents and their children, the culture and emotional expression, the intergenerational gap as we are raising our children in the diaspora who are exposed to diverse cultural experiences, the importance of seeking professional therapy and counseling for members of our community when the need arises. So as I always say, as we publicly continue to discuss issues within our community, we're shredding away stigma associated with uncomfortable dialogue, such as parents-child relationship, counseling, mental health. I really want to thank you so much, Adwoa, Lena, for coming in to talk to me about parents and child relationship, childhood trauma within African immigrant families in the diaspora. Many members of our community who are going to listen to this conversation will learn so much from your experience and your advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure, honestly.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Ponza Ponza Live Podcast. We hope to have you back with us in the next episode as we continue to explore the nuances of the African immigrant experience. If you'd like to connect with us, you can email us at talk@ponsaponsa.org. That is talk@pansapansa.org. And follow us on Instagram at pansa.pansaforum. Until next time, remember to spread kindness and love. Thank you and take care of yourself.